Hey everyone, it's Zinnia here, and today I wanted to show you how to make cutscenes in Scratch. So by the end of this video, you'll be able to take any Scratch game you have and add story progression. So yeah, let's get started. So as an example, I will add a cutscene to my shop game, where currently you can just basically walk around and collect coins, but you could add this to any Scratch game. So to start adding a cutscene, I'm going to add a character, and when the player clicks on that character, a cutscene will start. So I will draw this character really quick. And so now, to make the player be able to click on the character, I'll go to the events category and drag out a when this sprite clicked block. And when this character is clicked, I will send out a broadcast and I'll broadcast start cutscene. So I can click on the character and it sends this broadcast, but currently nothing happens yet. So how about I'll go to the stage and I'll add another backdrop to be like the background for the cutscene, and I think I'll pick the forest. And I can say, when I receive start cutscene, I will switch the backdrop to the forest. So let me restart the game and try that out. And there we go. Now the cutscene takes us to the forest. Now to have this character actually say something when the cutscene starts, I'll go back to the character and I'll say, when I receive start cutscene, well, I'll drag out a say block. And so maybe I'll say, your first quest is to bring me a lemon. And so let's try that out. I'll click on the character and now it says the dialogue. Also, if you're wondering why I split these into two stacks, even though it's sending this broadcast and then it's just receiving that broadcast within the same character, I like to do it this way because later on I'm going to make a part 2 to this series and show you an easy way to add multiple cutscenes. And at the point when you've got a lot of scenes, when the sprite is clicked, you might want to say, if it's the night backdrop and the player has 3 coins, then start this cutscene. Otherwise, start another one. And same with this, you might want the character to say different things depending on the cutscene. So I think splitting it up like this can make it a little easier to organize the code. So we're able to start our cutscene. Now let's make it so that we can actually end our cutscene. So I'll drag out another broadcast, and after the character's finished talking, I'll broadcast end cutscene. And when the scene ends, I can go back to this grass backdrop. So that's going pretty good. Now let's also make it so that the coins and all these buttons hide when the cutscene happens. So I'll go to one of these coins and I'll say, when I receive start cutscene, hide. And I can say, when I receive end cutscene, show. And you just need to drag this code to all of the sprites that are in your game world that you don't want to show during the cutscene. So let's try it with that. Hopefully this should look a little cleaner. I go to the cutscene. Ah, yes, that's much better. Now, there are still a couple of problems we might want to fix. Like, for example, the character can still just run around as much as they want during the cutscene. And you might notice the player can actually keep clicking on this character to restart the cutscene, even from within the cutscene. So let's fix those things. And one way we could fix them is we can make a variable, and I'll call it in a cutscene, question mark. And we'll use this to keep track of whether the player is currently in a cutscene, and if they are, we won't let them do certain things. I mean, you don't have to put this into your game. You could just let the player create chaos from within cutscenes. I guess it's up to you. But if you don't want to allow the player to create chaos, let's make that work. So I'll go to the player and I'll say set in a cutscene to false at the beginning of the game, because when the game starts, you're not in a cutscene. And then I'll say, when I receive start cutscene, I will set in a cutscene to true. And when I receive end cutscene, I'll set it to false again. So let's just test that that's working. Okay, it's false at the beginning of the game, and then when the cutscene starts, it becomes true. And then when the cutscene ends, it's back to false. Great. Now, to stop the player from moving during the cutscene, all we have to do is drag out an if block, and whoops, let me put this around these ones. We want to put this around all of this movement code. And I'll say, if in a cutscene equals false, then the player can move. So right now, yep, the player can move. I'll go to a cutscene, and now I'm clicking the arrow keys as much as I can, but I cannot move. But now I can move again. And similarly for this character, when the sprite is clicked, we only want to send this broadcast and start the scene if in a cutscene is false, because if it's true, we don't want to let the player start the scene again. So let's try that out. Now I can click on this character as much as I want, but because in a cutscene is true, it doesn't let me start a new scene until I click on it again from out here in the world. Oh, and one side note, let's say you only want this character to show up in a certain location in your game. Like, let's say your game has multiple locations like mine does, but you want this character to always only be standing in this area. You can go to this character and just make it hide at certain backdrops. So I'll say, when backdrop switches to grass 2, I'll make the character hide, and when backdrop switches to grass 1, the character can show. So now the character's hidden here, but they show up again here. Also, I should make them hide in the shop because they do not need to be in the shop. So let me add that, and there we go. Now the character is showing up where I want them to. So that's what I wanted to show you in part 1. In part 2, I will show you how to add multiple cutscenes so you can make different things happen depending on where the player is in the game. But for now, I hope you have fun making your project. Thank you to the person who suggested adding cutscenes. If you have any other video ideas, just put them in the comments, and I'll see you next time. And scratch on!